YouTube? It is your favorite gamer here, Above Average Cody, here to talk about the brand new controller setting here in Season 2 of Halo Infinite, the fabulous trigger dead zones for your controller. No matter what controller you use, you can now adjust your left and right trigger dead zones to basically have it dialed in so that no matter what, you can have the gun react when you hit the trigger. You can charge weapons properly, which I've had issues with in the past, but we're going to get into all of that one by one here. Now, the one thing I will say about trigger dead zones is everybody's going nuts about them on Twitter right now because everybody is freaking out saying, nobody asked for trigger dead zones. Why are you working on trigger dead zones? And more importantly, people are experiencing a break in the game where even at default settings, the guns aren't shooting. They are picking up guns like the Heat Wave, and it is not shooting because the trigger dead zone is wider than what their trigger can do, so it is not contacting, and it's not even picking up you pulling the trigger. Now, these settings are nice for people who don't have adjustments, but if you have an Xbox Elite, I've done videos, you can adjust it in the Xbox settings app, the Xbox accessories app, but I'm going to show you guys basically what these settings do and kind of how to play with them a little bit. Now, basically, a dead zone is an area where something sits where it is not contacting. The goal of these settings is so that you can make the dead zone either bigger or smaller so that something that is not picking up or registering movement is now registering it. The best example I can give you guys is on my other Elite controller, I had trigger stops on, which means the trigger does not go all the way down. It stops it short so that you can shoot faster without doing the full pull of the trigger. I had an issue where I could shoot weapons like the plasma pistol, but I could not charge them up because it did not contact well enough where it registered that I was holding the trigger down. These settings would have been able to let me fix that because I could have adjusted it such that it was picking it up because the dead zone would have moved, so it would have noticed that I was contacting the trigger. Hopefully this all makes sense to you guys. So we have two settings for each trigger. We have the inner dead zone and the outer dead zone. The inner dead zone covers when it registers the trigger being pulled. So at the moment that you shoot your gun, so right there, that's when it is picking up that I am shooting the gun. You're going to want that value as low as possible so that it is instantly picking up you are shooting your gun. The littlest tiny tap will initiate the gun shooting. Now, the outer dead zone is how far it goes before it notices the trigger is fully contact. So in a perfect world, guys, the inner dead zone will be right below the trigger just sitting stationary, so the moment you touch it, it picks it up. And then the outer dead zone will, again, in a perfect world, be all the way down, pinned against the controller. So you have an area of 0% to 100%, guys. Now, you can't go any lower with the inner dead zone. Why would you? But if you go higher with this, like let's say we go 45%, there is no 100% value. I have to push the trigger much further down to have it register, and you guys can't see, but you can test that value by just slowly touching the trigger and pushing it down and seeing when it contacts. Now, personally, I've had no issue with the default settings. I'm hoping changing them won't break anything. But that's basically what it is. So what each of these settings you are going to use them for, guys, is if your controller is not triggering the moment you touch the right trigger, you're going to play with the inner dead zone. Now, the outer dead zone, if you're having trouble with full auto weapons stopping firing, or you're having trouble charging the weapons, you are then going to lower the outer dead zone value because the charging of guns or holding something down, you're going to focus on when the controller thinks the trigger is all the way down, which again, that is what outer dead zone covers. It even says here, if you guys get confused in the description, set how far the left trigger needs to be pulled to be considered fully down. You don't want it half realizing it's fully down, half realizing it's not fully down, because you're going to be shooting the commando or the assault rifle and it's going to randomly stop shooting, or you're going to try to charge the plasma pistol and it's not going to charge. I had this issue on my Xbox Elite 1. I've since switched to the Xbox Elite 2 and I've had no issues, but these settings are basically what's going to save you guys. And obviously you have it for the left trigger, you have it for the right trigger. And I mean, It is a silly setting. I understand that people are upset that they put time into this setting over doing something else, but it is a necessary setting because I realize not everybody has a controller that they can just open up software on their computer and adjust the trigger dead zones. Again, if you have an Xbox Elite, you can do that through the Xbox accessories app. I don't believe Scuf has something. I'm sure they have some software, but I don't know how in-depth it is. I can only speak for Xbox Elite because that's the controller I play on. So to reiterate, guys, you have the left trigger, you have the right trigger, and the inner dead zone is when it just notices that you're shooting the gun. It's just the first initial contact of the trigger, and then the outer dead zone is where it is fully engaged, which will mostly affect your full auto guns and your charging of plasma pistols, the Ravager charges, everything like that, guys. Hopefully this helped you out in understanding the dead zones. You can find it under the controller settings. I think it's like the 3rd or 4th section. You go down here, and then it is right here under trigger dead zones. And just play with it, guys. Again, the best way to test it is to slowly, at least the inner dead zone, slowly just push down on the trigger and see when it contacts. You want that as close to the top as possible. And for the outer dead zone, you're going to want to go to a full auto gun. Best place to do is go to training options, go to something full auto. Just pick the first full auto gun you see, the commando. Perfect. I went all the way down the list to find one, and just hold it down, because you'll notice if you're barely contacting, it'll stop shooting, because a trigger is a very touchy piece of hardware. It's not always going to be in the same place because we're only human. Our fingers move, guys. It happens. But for the outer dead zone, you're going to want to pick up a full auto gun and play with it for that. All right, guys, that is basically literally all the talking I could do on trigger dead zones. I don't think I missed anything. I'm not a professional. I've just played a lot of FPS shooters for a lot of years, and I've learned a lot about controllers and shooting. So hopefully this helped you out. Again, if I missed anything, let me know down in the comment section. Please, guys, feel free to subscribe. We do a ton of Halo Infinite content now, especially now that Season 2 is back. We do a ton of live streaming. Please leave a like on the video. Leave a comment. Let me know anything you guys want to see. And, of course, feel free to join the channel membership, guys, if you feel so inclined to support monetarily. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you all very, very much. Stay happy, stay healthy, and stay tuned for the next video.